cái đây là cái đồng hồ này nè. Cái đây đồng hồ này. Đây pin nhẹ,这边买干的pin nhẹ。然后带这是带来有得改的pin nhẹ。然后没有的，它就是一个一个的毕业的，有的编的那个改，有的毕业卖我们，有的改的毕业，就是他一个人答辩。
Hereby I open the academic ceremony in which Liang essays on benchmark-driven investment in mathematical finance will defend the academic thesis, essays on benchmark-driven investments in mathematical finance. May I invite you to present a summary of your study and the conclusions of your thesis. You may talk now.
Summary? Oh, presentation. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Esteemed members of the examination committee and my supervisors, Anton Felser and Thomas Post, and everyone present. Thank you for taking the time to join me today as I present my doctoral research titled Essays on Benchmark-Driven Investment in Mathematical Finance. Before I begin, I would like to express my deep gratitude to those who have supported me throughout this journey. First, to my supervisors, Professor Anton Belser and Dr. Thomas Post, and for your invaluable guidance, encouragement, and constructive criticism that helped me shape this work. To my committee members, I need to take the list. So Professor Dries Vermeulen, Professor Anchen, and Dr. Christopher Kops, and Professor Michel Vellekoop. Thank you for your insights and feedback that have been instrumental in refining this project, and to the organizations that contributed to my work, so NetBar, and also to my ceremonial assistant, Lyndon, and Dice Gamma. Thank you for making the time and come all the way to help me today. Of course, I need to thank my family, friends, and colleagues that have provided unwavering support and motivation over the past 5 years. So then let me go to my presentation. So in my research, I focused on pension wealth uncertainty at retirement in defined contribution pension plans. The topic is significant because it addresses plan members' concern whether they can maintain the standard living of life after retirement in defined contribution plans. The main objective of my study was to increase the chance of accumulated pension wealth at retirement being around a desired target through benchmark-driven investment strategies, especially when the value of the contribution is lower than that of a desired target measured at the starting time. So over the course of the presentation, we'll guide you through the main components of my work, and I look forward to a discussion after my presentation. And I welcome your feedback and questions. This is a agenda for today. So first I'm going to show you the background and the context where, in which the research is conducted, and then goals and challenges followed by motivations and main results. So about the background, I hope you are aware of the fact that the Netherlands are moving towards a new pension system. So from defined benefit pension plans, we move to defined contribution pension plans. The main difference is that, I don't know whether I can show it. Like this former one, it promises a specific income, while the latter one depends on many factors, such as the amount you pay into the pension and also the fund investment performance, so how it goes with the market. And then is a great uncertainty with the pension wealth at retirement in defined contribution plans. So our goal is indeed to tackle pension wealth uncertainty at retirement. And our plan is first to define and quantify a financial goal at retirement, and then try to increase the chance of investment result being around our goal. Indeed, we also need to control downside risk. So, which means we have to control the risk that accumulate wealth at retirement being much below the goal. Then let me explain you the challenges we encountered. First challenge is that we don't know the value of the goal at retirement, because this value is largely affected by the inflation rate, interest rate, and more. So in that case, we can consider stochastic process to model inflation rate, interest rate, etc. But keep in mind, if you use more stochastic processes, the model becomes more complex. We can model the payment after retirement, but we need to determine the value of this payment at retirement. So with the complexity of the model, it's not easy to determine the value at retirement. So this is one challenge. The second challenge is the value of contributions, because its value is affected by working years length and also the contribution rate. But one paper states that in complete markets, if we use the present value of these contributions, then the final investment wealth will not be affected. So if we want to simplify the problem, we can consider complete market. But still, we don't know the present value, because the contributions, we don't know the amount and the frequency. But so this is also one challenge. And another one is how can we determine make sure that the accumulated wealth is around the target? Yeah, which means that the investment strategy should involve around the goal. But how can we do that? So based on this, we consider complete market. In that case, we found a approximation method, which by using this one, we can determine the value at the retirement. But very special in our case, because the model can be more complex. And also for this one, we don't know the exact value, right? Then we can consider ratio. So we, instead of considering the absolute value, we consider the ratio of contribution to the goal. So this quantity is evaluated at the starting time. So if this value is, say, 60%, then it means the market value for contributions is lower than that of the goal. In that case, we have to make a lot of effort to achieve the goal. And we have to make more effort when this value is below 100, then it's above, right? I think it should make sense, because we start with a lower asset. And then similarly, we use ratio for accumulated wealth. So instead of considering the absolute value, we just consider a percentage. Because what we care about is how the accumulated wealth is positioned with respect to the goal. So whether it's below or above, that is something we care about, but we don't really care about the exact value of accumulated wealth. This idea came from my supervisor, Andrew Belser. Not that he created this ratio, this idea, but he adds reasonable meaning to it, I would say. So, okay, with these settings, is it enough for our research? So then we consider risk preference, and also we come up with some extensions by considering different levels of goals and also model with stochastic volatility. Because we start with a model without stochastic volatility, and stochastic volatility means the market can be very volatile. And it's easy to start with model without, and then extend to model with. Let's see what can happen with our strategies. So about the risk preference, I think it should be common, or in general, we can invest in risk-free assets and also in risky assets. The proportion of the wealth invested in this asset strongly depends on your risk aversion level. Say if the risk aversion level is very high, then the more proportion of your wealth is invested in risk-free assets, like put your money on bank account or invest in bonds. But you know the interest rate the bank provides is very low, so it's not ideal if we want to accumulate our assets. You can also invest in risky assets. In that case, you have to allow more risk. And also the stock prices fluctuate very frequently, so goes up and down. And like especially for pension funds, it's not ideal if you invest all your assets in risky assets because we want to secure the pension wealth at retirement. So can we do something between? And also one quantity can quantify risk aversion level is relative risk aversion level, relative risk aversion. And this can be split into two groups. So a constant relative risk aversion and non-constant relative risk aversion. And this graph here illustrates an example. So for constant relative risk aversion, it's just a flat line here, the blue line here. And the pink one and the green one shows the non-constant relative risk aversion. So the blue one doesn't change. I mean, the value doesn't change with the wealth level, while non-constant relative risk aversion changes when the level of wealth changes. So let's see what it can do on investment strategy. So for this one, say our goal is 100%. So in this case, our accumulated wealth is exactly the same as our goal, like at some time points. And you see, this is very interesting. So here is a turning point. And here, when say it goes above 100%, then this level becomes higher, which means that we invest less in risky assets. In that sense, we can interpret it as the intention to preserve our accumulated wealth. While when this percentage falls below 100%, it means our accumulated wealth, the amount is lower than that of our goal. In that case, because it's lower, right, this value is lower, so we invest more in risky assets. You can interpret this as intention to recoup the investment. So I think this has an interesting property with this non-constant relative risk aversion. And the pink one is especially special. Like you see here is a peak around 100%. And so if you ignore this one, because this is the lower bound, we place a lower bound here because we don't want accumulated wealth value falls below this level, so kind of like control the downside risk. And you see if we ignore this lower bound, you see here we invest the most we invest the least in risky assets. Kind of like once the accumulated wealth, the value is around our goal, then we become very risk averse. So also compared to this one, more intention to preserve our accumulated wealth. And let's see what happens with the result, with investment result. Say our starting position is 60%. And then what happens with the final accumulated wealth? You see with this pink one, it's very special. This one is, the distribution is very centered around 100%. So kind of like we increase the chance of accumulated wealth being around our goal. And here, if you compare the green one to the blue one is just constant, right? It does nothing with the level of wealth. While the green one, it has like investor, I can go back to this one, kind of like invest less in risky asset when the value of the accumulated wealth is, goes above the value of the goal, and invest more when it goes down. So it happens like it can shift the distribution more to the right. Maybe here it's not obvious, but it has the effect that can shift the distribution to the right. And while this one can concentrate the distribution around the goal. So that's, you see the obvious difference between constant relative risk aversion and non-constant constant relative risk aversion.
You can go on if you like.
Okay. Like we also consider a different type here. It's like when the value of the accumulated wealth is above the value of the goal, then it's the same as the constant relative risk aversion. And while around the goal is a higher peak here, kind of like we are very risk averse. So we are not very interested in investing in risky assets. And when goes down, so then we can take some risk to invest in risky assets. Then let's see what happens with our investment result. You will see, so ignore this one, and we only compare the blue one and pink one. Here, kind of like when the accumulated wealth is above 100%, like above the value of our goal, kind of like very similar here, right? Like if they match each other, they're kind of like very similar, so nothing interesting. But if you here, you see a gap. It results in a gap. It means the total is the same, because here it's similar, so the total below and equal to 100%, the percentage actually is the same. Then because of this non-constant relative risk aversion, a proportion of the accumulated wealth is pushed on the level of the 100%, I say the goal, amount of the goal. Kind of like it can push the proportion when it is below 100% under constant relative risk aversion, now push on exactly on the level of the goal. For some extension, we also consider different levels of goals, and you will see this is how it happens. Like when the level of goal is higher, then it kind of like you see a higher peak here. And then here is what it does on the investment result. I would say you can choose a higher level of goal. Only the price is here, a very long left tail. So the amount so the value of the accumulated wealth can be lower than when we have a lower goal. So this is what we found from our research. Another interesting extension that when we consider model with stochastic volatility, we see in terms of the certainty equivalent wealth, this the result is less affected by the volatility of the market. So kind of like robust, in that case, not largely affected by the volatility of the market, I would say. So to summarize, so our main results, so we find useful tools for benchmark-driven investment, and we also find tools for reducing loss in certainty equivalent wealth when the volatility is ignored. Maybe it's not that easy to understand, but I have a very plain and playful English sentence, like, have a goal in life, it helps you achieve your goal, and people with goals are less affected by circumstances. Yeah, that's it. And thank you for your attention and your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Liang, for your presentation. The opposition will now be opened by Dr. Christopher Kops. He's an expert in quantitative economics at SBE in the quantitative economics department, as you know. The word is to Chris.
Dear candidate, my first question is about the functional form or the shape of the utility function. So this pertains to chapter 2, but also to chapter 3. So in chapter 2, you have the Sahara utility function.
Yes.
And in chapter 3, the King's Power one.
Yes.
And I marked here this part. So in chapter 2, you say here that similar to prospect theory utility function, the Sahara utility function is defined over gains and losses relative to a reference level. So I wanted to ask, since prospect theory is so popular, especially in behavioral finance, what are the differences, and could you elaborate on similarities and differences between these functional forms?
Yeah, I think with prospect utility functions, when it falls below the goal, and it can be risk-seeking. But in our case, investors always stay risk-averse, I would say. And also, like in their case, they usually use two parts, right? And in our case, it's just one utility function. So we don't need to split two parts, and the risk aversion level will evolve with the level of the wealth. I think that's the main difference, I think. Yeah, because most important, like we under Sahara utility, we always stay risk averse. We are not risk seeking. Yeah, only like these two two classes of utility functions can have similar effects. And also, in case they use like they have two parts of constant relative risk aversion, like they construct like that. In our case, our Sahara utility function can, like the risk aversion can, can be like the result, kind of like the wealth. If we do nothing with our Sahara utility, the wealth can be negative. I think that's also some drawback of with the Sahara utility function, but that's why we also have this lower bound in our optimization process to control the downside risk.
Okay, thank you. And what was the reason why you didn't pick prospect theory?
First, we want to derive closed form solutions. I think that is because a closed form solution provides explicit and also interpretable result. Like from all the pictures you see, we derived with closed form solutions. I don't know whether it's possible with the prospect utility functions, but usually I think they do simulations, I think, numeric results.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The opposition will be continued by Professor An Chen, who is an expert in actuarial sciences and is from Ulm University, Institute for Versicherungswissenschaften in Germany. I hope we can see An more lively than we see her now. Is there...
Professor An will be joining with audio only at this moment, unfortunately.
Okay, An, can you pose your question?
Ask a question related all to these benchmarks, because it seems to me that you, first of all, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more how it's exactly chosen here. And secondly, is that it seems to me you have drawn a lot of like conclusions for me related to the benchmark. I think at a certain time point you said due to the choice of the benchmark, you cannot use utility of the terminal wealth, but the ratio you also mentioned is that due to the benchmark and you sort of like high benchmark means that the total position today's value is higher or somehow. I think you have drawn a lot of conclusions related to the benchmark. Could you please elaborate a little bit more on that?
Actually, it's not that clear to me what your question is, because I don't hear clearly. I don't know, is that the same case for you?
Can you not hear me well?
Slowly repose your question again, so that
maybe we can just start a simple question. So, how do you actually have chosen this benchmark?
The extensions. We do all these extensions, like we consider different level of the goal, and also we consider model with volatility, stochastic volatility. Why we do these extensions, you mean?
No, why you have also ways the benchmark is chosen?
So I didn't hear the word.
So I think that you know why you chose the benchmarks that you actually
why you chose the benchmark? Okay. That I know that one. Because like if you don't have this benchmark in your optimization process, you just want to optimize your final wealth, right? Then kind of like you just do something you want to optimize, but it's not really related to your benchmark. And in our case, like we want to maintain the standard life of living for pension participants after retirement. So we want to like make their dream come true. So that's our benchmark, and we want also take this into consideration. Yeah.
But on the other side, if you look at only the ratio, right, and it could be like both the terminal wealth is low and the benchmark is low, you still have a very high ratio, right? So it does not really help you in a way. So then why not I just go, for instance, a CPPI constant proportion portfolio insurance where I get a real guarantee, or why I do not go just for a pension contract with guarantee?
Instead of using the ratio, we have some constraint as guarantees. Do you mean that?
But if you are still only try to ensure the ratio is higher than a level, it does not really help, right?
Yeah, I think like one motivation is kind of like we want to get the closed form solutions. And also by considering the risk preference levels, we kind of like figure out in which way we can make the final wealth is around the benchmark.
So what is the advantage of this, like compared to just go for a product with guarantees?
Compared to
a financial product or pension product with guarantees.
Train, right? I think like because with the ratio, we take this benchmark in the optimization process. So like our investment strategy also evolve around this benchmark. I think like a guarantee kind of like acts as the minimum, kind of like, I don't know, like a greater or equal to something like as a guarantee. So in our case, it can, because if you say my final assets should be at least this amount, kind of like you also limit your opportunities. In our case, it can fall below and also above, kind of like we have more choices, maybe make the dream come true. So I mean,
this can be also achieved by lower the guarantee level, right? I do not want that you have full amount guarantee. I can have like 80%, and then I also have more chances.
Actually, like then your guarantee is very similar to our lower bound. Our lower bound is kind of like minimum 10% or something 50%. We also try that. That kind of in our case, just it pushes the distribution to the left actually. I think I also showed in one paper, like we started with lower bound with 10%, then we increase to 50%, then see what happens with the distribution of the final wealth. So it only pushes the distribution to the left. And it doesn't really increase the chance of the accumulated wealth and final wealth being around the benchmark. So yeah, like if we have a benchmark.
Okay, thanks.
Professor Chen, are you happy with your answer?
Yes.
Okay. We will continue with the optimization with your last member of the assessment committee here present. That's Professor Michel Vellekoop. He's the chair of actuarial science and mathematical finance in the University of Amsterdam. Professor Vellekoop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear candidate, first I would like to congratulate you on finishing your thesis on what I think is a very interesting and relevant subject. It's not so easy to get closed-form formulas, but they're nice in the economic applications because we can interpret strategies and so on. So I think your results will help a little bit how useful benchmarks can be in an investment context. However, to talk about the applications, I would like to pick your brain a little bit on what you started your presentation with as well. So how we would work with this in a pension context. And what I'm particularly interested in is, suppose I would like to apply your methods in the decumulation phase. So once I'm already retired and I'm not just investing, I'm actually consuming my cash flows as well. Now, you emphasize that we have closed-form formulas under the Black-Scholes model, under the Heston model for certain utility functions, conservative risk aversion, the Sahara utility, but we also have results for those cases when there is consumption. So my question to you is, do you agree that it would be useful to include consumption? Do you think that the sort of formulas that you have can still be found if you do include consumption in the pension decumulation phase? If not, why not? And if so, how would you do the analysis and how do you expect your change? How do you expect your results, I should say, to change?
You mean consumption is after retirement?
Yes. Or in general, the general problem where there's not just a target in the horizon when I want to look at a certain moment what my wealth is there, but suppose I'm willing to consume my wealth.
Yeah, I think that's a good question because our model is very simplified, I would say. Like in that case, we want to include the consumption. Maybe we say consumption is just a proportion of the wealth, so we work with the percentages. So kind of like change the value because our goal is just like 111, but in real terms. So maybe. So if we still do the investment after retirement or not yet? Not.
Yes.
Yeah. Then it's like in our stories, like we don't do investment anymore after retirement. So we just do investment before the retirement. So kind of like we have to extend to your context. But I think it's interesting. But I don't know whether it's still possible. But we can try, I think.
I'm very happy that you think it's interesting, but I want to pick your brain a little bit further. So it's not so much the fact that we use the price index, because we can do that with consumption as well, right? We can divide by the price index at a particular point. But of course, your point is that we should have benchmarks. So if we have consumption as well, would you have a benchmark for consumption? What would it look like? Is there a certain... Because you say that we should specify beforehand what our benchmark is, making the dream come true, as you say.
Yes.
How is this in a consumption context? How would you do this? Or maybe how could you do it in such a way that you get similar results?
Yeah, actually, in our case, kind of like the number also means we also spend this money. Kind of like in that case, it's also kind of like consumption. Because like we say, this person has this particular amount of money, like actually we mean to spend. Actually, in that sense, it's also consumption. we don't kind of like use this amount of money to invest in something, but we have this amount of money to spend, so kind of like consumption, I think. So in that case, you can also interpret our result as consumption, I think.
But there you have to help me a little bit. So suppose that I am after retirement. In the Dutch pension system, we will continue also investing in risky assets. Wouldn't I have to decide at every point in time how much money I take out to consume and how I still invest the remaining assets? So then the decision variable, how much I take out to consume at a particular moment, how could we define a benchmark for that? That is my question. Or would you define a benchmark only for the final capital, and what does the final capital mean in such a context?
Yeah, in our case, kind of like, say everyone receives, one in real terms at each end of each month, I think, or year. Yeah, like kind of like you have this amount at some end period. So we calculate the present value at retirement. So then this is our goal. Kind of like in our case, it's just this amount is spent for consumption. Actually, total 100% for consumption. So if you want to use a part of the amount to invest, then that is another story, I would say.
Okay, so we should use your framework before retirement, but not afterwards, basically.
Yeah, kind of like before the retirement, we already have some goal, kind of like this is our standard of living. So it kind of like we receive like one in real terms, like at some each end of this period, and then we calculate the present value of all this. Actually, we use all this amount of money to spend for consumption.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also, no saving and no investment, just for consumption.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Vellekoop, for your question. Your position will be continued by Professor Peter Schotman. He's chair is empirical finance. He's also a member of our faculty, SBE, and of course, for our university.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear candidates, I was interested in reading your topics in this dissertation, and let me give you a little bit of context. I've also recently been interested in things like inflation hedging and everything that's... So I was happy to see that you were using this Brennan-Shah or an adaptation of the Brennan-Shah model in your thesis, and because that model and that paper has always been important in discussions about inflation hedging. And so and then in your chapter 2, what you write there is that you adapt the financial market considered by Brennan and Shah. And the only thing is you're not really say much about, you're not very explicit in what you change in the Brennan and Shah model, but what I guess you have done is that you made the market complete. In Brennan and Shah, the market is not always complete, but it can be incomplete. And that for your analysis, that's important that you have complete markets. But then I was puzzled in some of the further things because so you drop one of their sources of uncertainty, but then when I start and look at your numerical analysis, at some point there is a parameter sigma capital pi popping up, which does appear in the Brennan and Shah model, but you have just basically deleted that from the Brennan and Shah analysis, so that sigma capital pi in your table 2.3 should not be there. So what are you doing with that parameter?
Because like we use the real pricing kernel, so that's why it's not really used there. But we still use for the final wealth.
But where is it used? I cannot find it anywhere in your analysis, because there is a sigma small pi and a sigma big pi, and the sigma big pi I don't think would do anything.
I think it's relevant for the stochastic process, I think.
Yeah, so why do you give it a value?
I think that is also what they did in Brennan and Shah, I think.
Yeah, but you deleted that source of uncertainty. It's not there in your model. And I'm also wondering how you get to the numbers. So that
Oh,
is-
which numbers? The parameter numbers?
Yes.
Oh, I just kind of like copy from we use the value used in the paper Brandenshaw.
For all of them?
I think the kind of like maybe some digital difference, but like, yeah.
Okay.
Because kind of like we don't really have information about the current market, something like that, and we kind of like based the market like used in the Brandenshaw.
Yeah. So let's assume that that parameter doesn't do anything in your model. Then, if the chairman allows me to ask, yeah, to continue a little bit on this inflation topic, and what I'm really would be curious about is what your results actually imply for inflation hedging, and especially in the situation when, as you say, you derive all the kind of the optimal exposure to inflation risk, and also you say that one of the interesting examples that you say is interesting is when the kind of instruments that are there is that you have cash and two nominal bonds with maturities, different maturities. So that's especially relevant in the Dutch case where you only can, where there's no inflation-linked bonds, but you only have the nominal bonds. And can you say something about how that hedge, what it would look like in your model? If you only have nominal instruments, how that would hedge your inflation?
You mean we only use the nominal bond, right? No inflation
yeah,
index
that's because
bond.
that's one of them. You give these nice formulas, and that's in one of your theorems. You say if we have in your model framework, we can basically specify it such that we know and it is like your theorem 2, where you say, well, if we have two different bonds, this is the optimal holdings of these nominal bonds. So I would be quite interested. Do you have any idea what these holdings would look like?
Yeah, we tried that actually. Like we started with like to invest in nominal bonds, like two nominal bonds, right? Instead of using index bonds. In that case, you will see the proportion invested in this asset will be like if negative, then -4, -5, something like that, like 400, -400 then.
So do you think that's really implementable?
Yeah, that's why we don't think it's implementable. That's why we changed it to index bond. So with index bond, like it will not become very low, kind of like not -400. Like I think will be -200 something. 200% of the wealth, something like then looks more reasonable.
Yeah. So without index bonds, we should not try to hedge inflation.
I mean, it's very ugly, I would say. I like kind of like -4. Kind of like maybe you have doubt whether you are going to use this strategy.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Schotman. As you have noticed, probably Professor Dries Vermeulen is not present here. He had a very important meeting somewhere in Malaga. But that means that we are going to do a second round of questions. And I would like to start actually in the same order that we did before. And that means that we start with Dr. Christopher Kops again.
Okay, since my last question was about chapter 2 and to some degree chapter 3, I now want you to ask, or I want to ask you something about chapter 4. So in chapter 4, you have this part about model misspecification.
Yes.
Which I personally enjoy this literature very much. So I just want you to elaborate on this a bit more. And why did you assume this difference that the investor might think that it's black skulls, but in reality it's Heston? Could you also play with the parameters of the Heston model a bit? And is there some way in which, for instance, the investor could at some point pick up on that they have the wrong model in mind?
I think in reality, Black-Scholes model is very popular. So that's why usually the first model they come to is usually Black-Scholes, and because it's model simple, and also you can have closed form solutions, I would say. But in reality, it could be different because the market can be very volatile. And like for our comparison, we also made adjustment to the pricing kernel, because like if you just try the original Black-Scholes and also use the pricing kernel, yeah, my supervisor also we discussed maybe there's no good match. So that's why we also do something with the pricing kernel. Then in that case we can do some comparison, because like with the Hessel model, so there is volatility, and then like if you add derivatives, actually you can make more returns out of this volatility. But if you just totally throw this away, kind of like the results is not that comparable. So yeah, why we use the Black-Scholes model? Because it's very widely used model, and I think also very common to companies in reality. Yeah.
But as an investor, I would not be able to learn, right? If I assume that it's Black-Scholes, I just stick to it.
Yeah, in our case, it's very theoretical. Kind of like we want to do the good comparison, not just like for practical use. I mean, if in reality, I would think if you really think this is Black-Scholes, then you will just ignore the Hessel model and without the stochastic volatility. So I mean that in that case, you will make some loss indeed, right? In our case, like kind of like you still make loss, but the loss is smaller. But like in our case, it's just theoretical to make a good comparison. So in this case, if you, with this changed pricing kernel, then you will see what the loss should be, but not like we don't consider the cases in reality. But in that case, the loss will be larger, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kops. Let's hope that the connection with Professor Chen is still available and hopefully also hearable, better than in the first question. Professor Chen, are you still there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
You can ask your second question if you like.
Okay, so I just have a very small question. So in the very beginning of your presentation, you have also mentioned the defined contribution, right? And in US, for instance, one of the default investment setting for the defined contribution is so-called target date fund, which basically just the principle over there is just the older you become, the less you invest in the risky asset. So basically target fund 2050 or target fund 2070, and basically the decomposition of the risky assets will be just a little bit different. Now, in your case, and you kind of suggested this target-based investment strategies as well, right? And can you like quickly summarize that what is the key message that I learned from this investment strategy?
Key message of which two investment strategies?
In your case, because you have this target-based investment, right?
For target date investment, where you decumulate the risk towards the retirement date, versus the investment strategy that you talk about in your thesis.
Yeah, target date, I think it has it tended to invest less in risky asset when near retirement, right? I think that's the strategy. Actually, I also read a paper about the target date investment strategy, but it also tackles the volatility of the market. If you only consider the target date, I think kind of like you have to specify a range of amount of wealth invested in risky assets, in risk-free assets, right? Then you have to predetermine that, and then follow that strategy, and finally go to retirement. You have some amount, but in that case, you don't take the goal like benchmark into consideration. You just you follow this strategy, and you hope you have some amount at the retirement. But in our case, our investment strategy involve around our benchmark, so the goal. Like depending on the reference level, like you see, I showed the different one, the pink one, the green one. So different pattern of this risk preference. Then you will also have different results. In any like this is more personalized. So different person, different risk preference. We can tailor to that. But like for the targeted data investment, they don't take personal risk preference into account. So
it does. You can still, I disagree. You can still take also utility maximization approach as you did. They can also determine, of course, the optimal composition. I mean, the only thing which is a difference is that there is no, in this sense, guaranteed. You can add the guarantee as a constraint, but they can do as well.
Yeah, I think in that case, like you just want. Your goal is just your guarantee, right? Kind of like greater or equal to something. Do you want to place this constraint in your optimization problem?
That's fine. That's fine. I'm just asking that, like, from the target date fund, I learn the principle immediately, right? Basically, the older you become, the less you invest in the risky asset. And now what I try to get the key message from your investment strategy, which you have suggested. And now what do I learn? Do I have like one of the key principles learned immediately from your strategy?
The key message of my studies, like, because the goal, we also determine the present, like you determine some time point, and we kind of like calculate the present value of the goal at this time point, and then compare our accumulated wealth, like what's the position below or above. Then our investment strategy directly react to this position. If lower, then we invest more in risky assets. If above, then we invest less. Like for particular risk preference level, I would say, because different risk preference styles and also different strategy. But the main message is it will react to the position to the goal. Like whether it's below or above, then different investment strategy.
Okay.
Point, I would say. Yeah.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Professor Chen. And then the next member of the committee again is Professor Velkoop, and he will also ask you a second question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so my second question is about Chapter 3, the King's utility function. We've already talked a little bit about it before. Now, when you derive the optimal investment strategy for that case, you show the distribution of the optimal outcomes. This is in figure 3.4 on page 77. Now, personally, I always find it very hard to specify my own and let alone anyone else's utility function. So I like to interpret these results the other way around. Instead of asking an agent what the utility function is and then looking at the optimal portfolio, you can use someone's portfolio to tell something about their risk preferences, about their risk aversion if you want. Now, from that perspective, can you give some economic intuition why any agent or institution would like the distribution that you're generating here, that there is a substantial probability of having an exact 100% replacement ratio? Why is that better than the smoother versions of the outcomes that we see for non-King's utilities?
Actually, if you see from, you mean on page 77, right?
3.4, yeah.
3.4, like if you look at the panel A, you will see like with this kinked power utility, you will see the right tail is pushed to the right, and the left tail is Yeah, okay, kind of like two tails are pushed outside, a little bit aside, but more to the right. But you will see the accumulated wealth is more centered around this 100%. That's the purpose.
But why would I want it? Maybe it's even clearer on page 84 in figure 3.8. So there we see that the replacement ratio really has a jump in the distribution, right? There's a positive probability that I get exactly the replacement ratio. Why would I want that? Why is the 100% replacement ratio so much better than the 101% replacement ratio?
This is kind of like achieving the goal. Like our goal, like if at 100%, then we achieve the goal. Actually, if above it, it's just better. But in our case, we just show, because kind of like if above 100%, actually we have exactly the same risk aversion level as the constant relative risk aversion. That way we choose the same parameter. That's our purpose. We want to show what happens if the risk aversion level below 100% is lower, so we invest more in risky assets, and also what happens with the loss aversion, like around this 100%. So the effect we show from the picture is like it pushes, like these two kind of like things push the distribution to the level of the 100%.
Yeah, those are the mechanics. But as you also explained in your presentation, it is because you are maximally risk averse in the 100% replacement ratio. So do you think that is realistic? Do you think that is what my risk aversion would look like? Because in the standard Sahara function, your risk aversion is maximally when you go bankrupt, right? Around wealth is 0. So that is a point you really try to avoid. And if you go beyond it, then you may sort of gamble for resurrection. But now you say I'm maximally risk averse if the dream comes true in your
yeah, kind of like because the market can be very volatile. I mean, higher accumulated wealth is always better, but we don't know what the market is going to happen, right? So in case we can secure the amount of the accumulated wealth, then we are going to do that because this is a pension funds. We want to guarantee everyone gets some money to spend at retirement. So I mean, higher accumulated wealth is always better, but we don't know whether we can always have that, I think. Because this is pension funds. I mean, like security is a priority here, I think. I think.
Thank you for your answer.
What about it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Delko. Maybe it's time for me to ask you a question. You ended your presentation with a philosophical quote, I would say, have a goal in life. It helps you achieve your goal. People with goals are less affected by circumstances. You also end your propositions with a philosophical quote. And maybe one of your parliaments can express it in the microphone. So it's proposition 8 from your list of propositions.
For a committed person, there is no such thing as failure. Just lessons to be learned on the way by Sadhguru.
Now, you may explain who Sadhguru is. I guess it's one of a very important philosophers that you know of, but I never heard of him or her. I guess it's about you. You're a committed person. And,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so you're not having such a thing as failure, but lessons to be learned on the way. So I was wondering myself what the lessons that were that you have learned in the past 4 years doing your PhD.
Yeah, okay, then it's just my personal experience, right? I mean, I would say the first is very hard. And also then just several months after I started my PhD study, then came the COVID-19, so it was a really stressing period. So yeah, but kind of like first because the concepts were new to me, and also like first year we had to learn a lot. Yeah, especially in my case, and then also you have the stress whether I will stay healthy for the whole time. But yeah, like kind of like you have to keep on trying. And because it was really difficult at the beginning, and I keep trying and work hard on it. No matter no matter you know whether you can achieve something, but just keep on trying. Yeah.
So how would you, in one sentence, phrase the most important lesson that you've learned?
Keep on going and fight for life.
Okay, and who's Sadhguru then?
Sorry?
Who is Sadhguru? Can you?
Actually, it's not
a person.
No, not a well-known person, because I just like this sentence.
I can imagine, but you didn't try to learn something more about this person to find out how he or she came to this.
The far as I know, he kind of like a traveler. He's a traveler and like travels around. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So nothing much to say
about
him.
No. I just like this sentence. Okay.
Liang, the time appointed for defending your thesis has passed. Mm-hmm. The degree committee will now withdraw to discuss the quality of your thesis and your defense, and I request that you and your company await the result of our deliberations and our return in this room.
The PhD defense has now ended. The degree committee will debate the candidate's performance behind closed doors. This process usually takes about 10 minutes.
Long road to the south side. 10 miles in my rearview mirror, I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer, east side to the west side. No place like home, if it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. All your time, 'cause I'll go the extra mile. Long road to the south side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror, I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer, east side to the west side. No place like home, if it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. On the dash, got my laces tied. Long road, I don't waste no time. Break rules because fate decides. With the team and we chase the light. I make a move, fall down, shake it off. I hate to lose, bad branch, break it off. No room for negativity, praise and love. Prepare for deep part cause we're taking off. Get the mileage, traveling so far from home. Gathering knowledge, other connections. I put the time in to get everything I ever hoped for. It's a challenge and we all in. It's a better future that we go for. Even though these nights seem long, I know that I am never on my own. Know you won the battle once you've grown. South side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror, I know what it felt like. My goal's only getting clearer, east side to the west side. No place like home, if it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile and die. Long road to the south side, 10 miles in my rearview mirror, I know what it felt like. east side to the west side. No place like home. If it's questions that you've got, go the extra mile or die. What's on the line? I know you know that I can't read your mind. Years can't fly by now, don't waste all your time. 'Cause I'll go the extra mile.
Liang, the degree committee here present has assessed the quality of your thesis and your defense, and in view of its positive verdict, and taking into account your previous qualifications, the degree committee has decided to grant you the degree of doctor.
Okay, thank you.
Professor Pelser is authorized to confer upon this academic distinction in accordance with Dutch university custom. I invite your supervisor to now take the floor.
Do you promise to work in accordance with the principles of scientific integrity at all times, to be careful and honest, transparent, independent and responsible? What's your answer to this question?
Yes.
Good. By the authority invested in us by law and in conformity with the decision of the committee here present, I hereby confer upon you, Li Yang, the degree of doctor and grant to you all rights attached by custom and law. As evidence of this, I now present to you the degree certificate signed by the rector, the secretary and the other members of the committee and affixed with the official seal of the university.
Thank you.
Dear Dr. Young, also on behalf of the Maastricht University, I congratulate you with the degree you have acquired. And it's now upon to Professor Pelser to do the laudatio.
Okay. Let me start with one Dutch phrase, which I could not translate into English. Weledel, zeer geleerde vrouwen, Dr. Li Yang. This was the very formal Dutch way of addressing Dr. Li Yang with her official title. So, dear Li, your PhD position was part of the NetSPAR project, designs of pension contracts in incomplete markets and under uncertainty. And while the NetSPAR project started already in January of 2018, you began your journey in September of 2019. You completed your research master thesis, your research master here in Maastricht, and you had initially planned to pursue your PhD with a different professor. Yes. But unfortunately, that professor left Maastricht University, and I was very happy that you were interested in doing the PhD with the position that I had still available in my project. And 1 year earlier, in September of 2018, Thijs Kamma had started as the other PhD project. So I'm also very happy that Thijs now is still here again as a paranymph. And starting a PhD track requires several key characteristics. First, you must be smart enough. Well, I think we can say check on that.
Thank you.
Second, you must be persistent and willing to tackle challenging problems for several years. That's also a check mark. But unfortunately, you had the misfortune of doing your PhD during the COVID-19 lockdowns, and you also addressed this when asking when answering the question by Professor van Hoesel. And as the people who have worked or are working on a PhD, they know from experience that pursuing a PhD can be isolating at the best of times. And it must have been especially difficult when you were mostly confined to your room at home. And the pandemic brought unprecedented challenges, from limited access to university resources and face-to-face interactions, and also the emotional toll of isolation. But despite these obstacles, you demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability, and you continued your research with unwavering determination. So how can I characterize Li as a researcher? Well, there are people like me who get very excited about every new research idea they come up with. Lee, on the other hand, is quite modest and quite cautious. However, once she has an idea in her head, she will very persistently follow it through. So that's good. But it sometimes took a bit of convincing from my side to nudge you in a slightly different direction on the rare occasion when I felt that this was necessary. So despite all the challenges that COVID-19 threw at you, you have delivered an excellent thesis with 3 interesting papers. And the quality of your work is being recognized internationally. The one paper from your thesis called Benchmark-Driven Investment for DC Pension Plans has already been published in a reputable academic journal, the Journal of Pension Economics and Finance. And this paper provides significant insights into how benchmark-driven strategies can be optimized for defined contribution pension plans. And the other 2 papers are both in the second round of review, so that's really good news, and I expect that they both will be published soon also in good quality journals. And these papers further contribute to understanding of pension contract design and investment strategies under uncertainty, showcasing your ability to tackle very complex problems and to invite innovative solutions. And your research not only advances academic knowledge, but also has practical implications for policymakers and practitioners in the field of pension economics. So your work has significant applications for the pension sector in the Netherlands by addressing the challenges for quote-unquote underfunded pension contracts. Your research provides valuable insights that can help improve the financial security of retirees. So dear Lee, I wish you the very best of luck in your future endeavors. I am grateful for the opportunity to have worked with you and to have been your mentor. And it was also very interesting to see you mature from a rather shy master's student to a promising young researcher. And I'm looking forward to following the rest of your career.
Thank you very much.
Some remarks we made from household type. The audience can leave the room after the committee and the new doctor have left the room. We will first take some pictures in our own stairway to heaven, and then we'll join you for the drinks. And you can follow the signs to the room that is available to you. So, hereby I close this session and hope you can follow us to the stairway.
Recording stopped.
Like this done? Leave it.
You come first, yes. This is the diploma, the parliament.
Hi, should I stay in this room?
Maybe you want to say something to the professor before we leave?